I'm gonna do the thing in English then. Hi everyone, good afternoon. Hello, my name is Vinita Katiyaari. I'm officer here at Sea Junction, and welcome to our space. Sea Junction is a venue for anything and all things Southeast Asia. We are very happy to be a part of the Mekong ASEAN Environmental Week 2024. Today we have a pleasure to welcome the speakers and to learn more about our afternoon topic here. I forgot my notes somewhere. But please let me introduce Ishita, who will be our moderator today. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to this session. I know it's rather afternoon. You've been attending so many sessions this morning. So our session is basically on international financial investments in Southeast Asia. The reason why we are doing this panel, we put it together, is because Southeast Asia has been particularly experiencing a lot of investments coming in. So in 2023 itself, there has been over $226 billion of investments coming in as per UN data. So there is a lot of things for us to unpack. I will immediately start with introducing our panelists who have decades of experience in social mobilizing, campaigning, advocacy, legal strategies, etc. So first of all, I would like to introduce Carlo Manalansan, who is a social activist, a researcher and development worker, who is based in the Philippines. He's the Southeast Asia Community Organizer for International Accountability Project. For more than a decade, Carlo has been working with NGOs, social movements, and communities against extractivism, climate justice, energy transition projects, development cooperation, and human rights. Second, I would like to introduce Sutharee Wannasiri. Sutharee is the Communities Associate Asia with Accountability Council, which is based in the US. She is based out of Bangkok, Thailand, and she has been, again, working for over a decade on different kinds of environmental and human rights violations. She has worked with grassroots communities. She has worked on labor rights issues. So welcome, Sutharee. Thirdly, I would like to introduce Toshi. He's currently senior advisor with a Tokyo-based NGO called Mekong Watch. He has over 30 years of experience monitoring international financial investments in Asia and the Mekong region. And he specifically looks at IFIs like international financial institutions like the Asian Development Bank and communities' access to natural resources. Thank you so much to all the panelists. I also just wanted to quickly acknowledge the fact that two of our panelists who were supposed to come from Cambodia are not present with us today on the panel for reasons. And I would like to acknowledge their absence. They would have really contributed to understanding better the micro impacts of development finance across the region. So, my name is Ishita Chakrabarty. I'm going to be your moderator for today. I'm also associated with Accountability Council, the Communities Asia team. And yeah, we can get straight away to our first PowerPoint presentation, which is going to be followed by a set of questions asked by me. Firstly, we will be looking at an overview of international financial investments in Southeast Asia, answering questions like, what are IFIs? Who are the major players in the region? Where are they investing all their monies? What are these investment amounts? And what sectors are they primarily investing in? So Sutharee is going to be delivering our presentation.
Okay, maybe I can stand. First of all, I actually would like to acknowledge and thank you for our audience today, and for also like spending your time like Saturday afternoon like with us. Maybe I can have like I would like to know which country are we in here, like just like yeah to get to know a little bit. Could you share like which country are you from? Like is there someone from Thailand here as well? Okay, from Cambodia. Yes, yeah. Any other country like Vietnam? Okay, yes, yeah. Okay, yeah. So yeah, so okay, thank you so much. It's really our pleasure to have a diverse background in the room, and I hope that like this information is going to be useful also like in for your work. So first of all, like for the international like financial institution in the regions, I would like to give you some overview of the like what it look like what's the amount, what's the stakeholder and actor that are involved. But first of all, like perhaps I can share with you a little bit about Accountability Council, the organization that I'm work with. Accountability Council is also an NGO. We are based in the U.S. Our mission is to support the community and the people who have been affected by development finance project, especially the project that receive the financial support or technical support from international financial institutions. In our organization, we have community teams. This is where I'm from. We have research team and we also have policy team. So like our main approach is to use the accountability mechanism of this public bank to demand accountability and remedy like from the harm that this bank have caused. So these are like many of you may not be familiar with the IFI or International Financial Institutions. So these are basically public financial institutions. They provide finance and technical assistance either to private sector or to public sector with the main goal to address poverty and also for economic development. So like in our work, we also include development finance agency that is not only like IFI, for example, JICA, like with Toshi could also help like tell us more in detail as well, or FMO. FMO is also like international corporation bank of the Dutch. So like ADB, Asian Development Bank, and the World Group. So these are the institutions that we are talking. So these institutions, they receive money from taxpayers. And that is why it is very important that we also have to make sure that they are spending taxpayer money in responsible way. So these are the landscape of the investment in the region in Southeast Asia from these public banks. As you can see, like between 2010 and 2022, there are top 5 ASEAN countries that receive the most investment in the region. It's Indonesia, Vietnam, Philippines, Myanmar, and Cambodia. So these are the information that also available in public. We get the information from the Lowe Institute. So looking into the number of the development projects in the region, from here you can see that the number one investor in the region is the Asian Development Bank. They have the most number of the projects. Following that is the World Bank, and after the World Bank is the International Financial Corporation or the IFC. So the IFC is basically a private arms of the World Bank. They focus the investment in private sector. And then after that it's like FMO, like DFC and AIIB. The next one, I would like to share with you in terms of the investment per country. So if you look by country, like as we say, Indonesia received the most, and after that, Vietnam, Philippines, Myanmar, and Cambodia. And if you look in terms of the ratio of divided by the bank, you can also see here as well, right? Asian Development Bank and the World Bank in purple, Asian Development Bank in blue. These are still the biggest. Yeah. The next one is in terms of investment by the sector. So if you look into the sector that received the most investment is finance. So basically in this sector, they give the loan or they give the loan to commercial banks within that country. After that, it's also on education, agriculture, energy project, for example, hydropower, solar power, coal power plant is also included in the energy project. And after that, it's infrastructure transport. So these are the investment by the sector. So these investment projects across the region, they also have, in many cases, associated with economic and environmental harm. Even though they have the public banks have the good intentions to help reduce poverty or to accelerate economic development, but because the implementation might not be the most effective or the most strict to uphold the standard. In many cases, it have caused human rights violations and environmental concern for the community. And this violation took place in the form of sometimes it's forced labor, sometimes environmental impact, health impact, or forced displacement, or loss of cultural and livelihood of the community. So it is very important that these public banks or this IFI have to also be held accountable, and at the same time they have to be able to provide the remedy and mitigations to the affected community. And one of the channels that we have been using in order to support the community to get that remedy is to use the accountability mechanisms of the banks. And this accountability mechanism of the bank is basically an office that sits with that bank. They can receive complaints directly from the community and affected people. After they receive the complaint, sometimes it's environmental complaint, sometimes human rights, sometimes livelihood issues or indigenous people rights. And then the office, the community can choose to function. The community choose to do first negotiations, or in the terms of this complaint mechanism, we call it dispute resolutions. Or the community can choose to do investigation or compliance review. So this with Accountability Council, we have collected the complaint that has been filed to this accountability mechanism from the very beginning when they first start, 1995. It first started with the World Bank. The World Bank set up their accountability office called the inspection panel. So we have collected the data since then, and then we compile it, and then we can share it with you what it looks like so far in terms of the impact that have been felt by the community in the region. So in Southeast Asia, from 1995 until 2022, there are 71 complaints. It's actually not many if you look into the number of years of the investment. And the number of complaints coming most from Cambodia, second one, Indonesia, and then Vietnam, Philippines, Myanmar. So, yes, so these are what we have collected so far, we found. The second issue is that, so what public bank received the most number of complaints from the community? From here, you can see that the highest one is the IFC, International Financial Corporations, And this is because IFC, as I mentioned to you, they invest or they give loan to private sector. And in many cases, the private sector, either the company or the corporate, are the ones that have been associated also with violations of environmental and human rights in the region. The next one is the Asian Development Bank and then the World Bank. And then we have also JBIC and JICA here, although not that many. From the number I see, it's like 4 or 5 complaints each. The next one is term of the issue. What are the most common issues that have been raised in the complaint? So in this complaint that filed from the community, we identify that the most transportation is in the form of like when you are designing or implementing the project, the bank and the authority that do that project have to make a public consultation and listen to the people that will be affected. But unfortunately, in many cases with this investment, they did not. That is why it turned up in the complaint. Disclosure is about sharing the information with transparency. So has the document or the project data been shared with the community with transparency and in time? In many cases, it does not. The second issue that has been raised is livelihood. The third one is the displacement, even in terms of economic displacement and physical displacement, that you have been removed from your home or you have been removed from your agricultural area. And then it's environmental due diligence and then water issues. The last one that I'm going to share with you today before I conclude is the sector. What are the sectors that receive the highest number of complaints? Number one is infrastructure. So this is building the road, building like the for example train or like different like bridge. Like so these are the infrastructure projects that receive the most complaints. After that is the energy. Energy is like hydropower project or like coal power plant project. And then it's agricultural business, financing, and also like regulatory development. So this is about when the bank give the money or give the financial support to the government to amend their financial regulations. Yeah, that in many cases it has been resolved in marginalized the community further. And then the sixth one is manufacturing. For example, the factory that produce like consumer goods. And the seventh one is the project that are related to conservation and biodiversity. So I think I can stop here first as a general overview. And if you have more questions, I can answer.
Thank you so much, Sutharee, for that presentation. I think I was just about to ask a follow-up question about whether and why we should be concerned about IFI investments. But I think you gave a very good answer in your own presentation, which was it's all of our taxpayer money, which is why we should be bothered. And you can see the range of violations that Sutharee has pointed out with livelihood issues, displacement issues, due diligence, environmental, basic consent-taking procedures. So that tells us about the gravity of the situation. Is there anything else you would like to add about why we should be concerned?
I think it's like when we talk about remedy, we all know that it is a very long and lengthy process. And from using this accountability mechanism as well, we have identified that there are several challenges that the community is facing in terms of trying to get remedy or get justice when their human rights or their community have been affected. I think I have some more slides. Yeah, this is the slide that I will. 1 minute. Yeah. So these are some of the issues that I have identified in terms of like for the community to get the remedy. what are the limitations and what are the benefits of trying to use this complaint mechanism of the bank to get it done. So I think the first issue is usually the language barrier and also the complex of the process. Usually it's in like English or it's in foreign language that community are not familiar with. After that is also the technical. The technical part of the process is also require a lot of understanding of the legal standard or like policy of the bank. And I think like another issue that I found that is very concerning is the retaliation and reprisal. In many cases, when community file or submit the complaint, it can create more risk for them in terms of their safety and security. So it is very important as well that these public banks pay attention to the security and safety of the people who file the complaint. So I think I can stop there and then our.
Thank you again, Sutharee. You've also said the case for Toshi. We have worked so extensively on banks like Asian Development Bank, and I think that's very concerning that Asian Development Bank is one of the largest funders in the region. So Toshi, you will be starting your presentation, and I think you will be starting on your experience working for over 30 years with monitoring ISI investments, your experience tracking them, and whether since you have started, there has been any progression, any difference in right financing or protection strategies available with international banks?
Thank you. Hello. 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 Okay, this is. Thank you, Ishita. You said 30 years twice, and that really makes me feel that I'm very old. Anyway, Toshi from Mekong Watch, and this is my Mekong Watch, which keeps me on time. All right. Anyway, I'd like to start my presentation with some pictures, particularly the one on your left. Okay. This is a picture that I took 24 years ago in May 2000 in Chiang Mai, Thailand. It's a scene from an annual meeting of the Asian Development Bank, ADB for short. And this was only 3 years after the Asian financial crisis in 1997. Maybe many of you are not born yet. Anyway, so after the Asian financial crisis, IFIs, including ADB, forced a very hard structural adjustment program on Thailand. So people in Thailand were very angry. So ADB's annual meeting had to face very strong protest from Thai civil society movement, initiated by farmers, fisher folks, urban poor, consumers, students, etc., etc. And that's what you are seeing in the picture. On top of that, one ADB project became a focus of attention, and it's called, you can see not very clearly, unfortunately, but it's called the Krondang Wastewater Management Project. And this wastewater management project was actually built not very far from here, about 1.5 hour drive. You can get there. It's still there. Okay. The local community told ADB to cancel this project because they were very much concerned about its negative impact on the local environment and seafood industry. They are also not even informed about the project beforehand. And this project was also co-financed by one of the bilateral funding agencies that was mentioned in the previous presentation, JBIC, Japan Bank for International Cooperation. Anyway, the okay, just to sort of get you a visual image, the investment was like this. ADB and JB funded the Thai government, and that implement the project. So it was pretty straightforward. Anyway, because of the IFC involvement, the local community filed a complaint with ADB's grievance mechanism, which was back then called inspection panel. When I say a grievance mechanism, it's the same as the accountability mechanism that was mentioned in the previous presentation, but I intentionally use the word grievance mechanism because an accountability mechanism, from my perspective, is really not living up to the kind of accountability that we want. So I intentionally call it a grievance mechanism. Anyway, this grievance mechanism did investigation, and they concluded that ADB had violated up to 7 of its policies. However, the grievance mechanism did not agree the community's demand to cancel the project. So the community had to continue their campaign by doing a lot of other things. Of course, they kept pressuring the Asian Development Bank, but also they lobbied their own Thai government or inviting journalists domestically or internationally to write their struggles, and also taking the case to the Thai court, and even occupying the construction site to block the construction. And eventually, this project was cancelled by the Thai government due to the involving corruption. So in the end, the community was happy. ADB's grievance mechanism, from our perspective, I would like to focus on ADB's grievance mechanism, was actually established in 1995. Yeah? So it was there for a while. However, before year 2000, only 2 complaints were filed. And on top of that, ADB's mechanism rejected these 2 cases. So Klondike was actually the first case where the inspection panel conducted investigation and issued a report. And although the community was pretty much disappointed with the outcome of the panel, they still felt that the complaint helped the campaign go public. They get a lot of public attention because they had filed a complaint with ADB's grievance mechanism, both domestically and intentionally. So after this Klondike case, many NGOs in Southeast Asia saw some usefulness of IFI's grievance mechanism, ADB's inspection panel in particular, as a campaign tool. After Klondike, as the previous presentation said, local communities in places like Cambodia, Vietnam, they filed complaints with not only ADB, but also the World Bank and other financial institutions. Also, a number of Asian NGOs, particularly the members of the Manila-based NGO Forum on ADB, have been closely monitoring ADB to make sure that ADB's policies, in particular grievance mechanism, will continue to be useful. One other development is other funding institutions, even bilateral institutions like JBIC and also JICA, Japan International Cooperation Agency, and more recently, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, or AIIB for short, they have also established or strengthened their own grievance mechanism. I need to take a breeze a little bit. Okay. At this point, our question should be, now, after 20-some years, is IFI investment any better? Okay. And of course, if we ask IFI themselves, they would probably say, sure, yes, because we have improved our policies, our grievance mechanism is much stronger, we have more constructive dialogues with you, NGO, right? But my response to this question is a bit more mixed and also nuanced. There are certain improvements, I can agree. However, these improvements have largely been as a result of our pressure, public pressure, especially from NGOs and local affected communities like some of you. Also, better really depends on for whom, right? Now, keeping these things in mind, let us look at another project, which is a bit more recent project. Now, this time, it's a hydropower, mega hydropower project called Lower Sasan 2, which is built in northeast part of Cambodia on the tributaries of the Mekong River. The dam was completed in 2017. If I talk about a little bit about negative impacts, in one estimate, the project may reduce the Mekong fishery by more than 9%. Also, socially, about 5,000 villagers have been displaced. Around 100 families are still refusing the compensation to relocate, but are restoring the damaged communities themselves. You can see some pictures there. The one at the bottom is one of the holdout communities. They have refused the compensation, accepting compensation to relocate. And now, instead, they are restoring themselves, but pretty much on their own. They are still not compensated. Okay. Now, when we look at investment theme of this project, it looks like this. Okay. Now, we see some private companies from countries like China and Vietnam. And therefore, these companies are getting investment from Chinese banks and Vietnamese banks, right? And this is definitely a more recent trend over the past 25 years. In other words, we now have to cope with new actors, not just the government and IFIs, but also private corporates, and also what we might call emerging powers, new powerful countries like China and Vietnam, and in some cases even Thailand, right? Now, this is why these days we may get hear and also see IFIs less often. However, even in a case like this, if we look at it a bit more carefully, actually, we find that the World Bank, their money, their investment is actually going to one of the Vietnamese banks, and it goes indirectly to the Lower Sasan 2 project. Now, finding this indirectly linked, the affected community filed a complaint with the World Bank's grievance mechanism in 2018. Then they conducted field investigation recently last year, actually, and is now finalizing a report with some remedies. And we are still not sure how useful, how beneficial these remedies might be, particularly for the affected communities. However, at the same time, the World Bank management has been making every effort to try to dissociate themselves from this project by saying, well, we are not really into this project, and so on and so forth. So to summarize my presentation, IFI investment in Southeast Asia these days may be less visible when compared to 25 years ago, represented by a project like the Crondown Waste Management project. It is largely because we have had to shift our attention to new actors like private companies and also new donors like China, Vietnam, and even Thailand. However, IFIs are not less influential because in some projects they are still behind. And their investment might still get into very destructive projects through what we have been calling financial intermediaries like this Vietnamese bank. I am not saying IFIs are behind every single destructive project like Lower Sessan 2, but at the same time, we have seen some official figures in the previous presentation, right? IFIs are putting a lot of money. However, even those figures may not be accurately showing IFI's involvement because they try to deny these links. And sometimes they themselves are not aware of these links. And they become aware of these links only after NGOs and local communities bring them up. In short, IFI's investment may have become less visible, but they are definitely less transparent. And this makes it very challenging for NGOs and even more challenging for local communities to make full use of IFI's policies, in particular grievance mechanism. So I stop there, and whatever questions I leave unanswered, I'll try to entertain them. Thank you.
Thank you, Toshi. You rightly summarized that right now we have newer actors joining the team. More cases, more number of mechanisms which have been established, but they continue to function as grievance mechanisms and not really as accountability mechanisms. But something that you touched upon was access to information, because that appears to be the first step for communities to even campaign lobby against these bans. So what advice would you have for campaigners currently who are affected by these problems?
If you're talking about using grievance mechanism or accountability mechanism in their term, I think one thing to definitely keep in mind is grievance mechanisms are useful, but they are useful in some limited senses. They're not, magic stick or panacea. So we have to be clear about what we would like to achieve by filing a complaint. And at the same time, we have to try a lot of other things that are available, whether it's media work or lobbying your own government or even sometimes direct action, as we have seen in the Crondown case. Because particularly these days, grievance mechanisms can be rather technical and even legalistic. And sometimes it's a very labor-intensive work. We have to spend a lot of resources, whether it's time or energy or knowledge. And we tend to focus just on that complaint and not affording to spend a lot of time on other things. And of course, one NGO cannot be responsible for everything. So I think we need some work in network manner. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is, yes, grievance mechanism can be useful, but you have to be clear about how you're using, what you're trying to achieve, and at the same time, particularly if you're really interested in making major changes, such as stopping a project, you have to do it. You have to use the mechanism alongside a lot of other things that are available to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Toshi, again. So now I'd like to ask Carlo. So Carlo, can you tell us more about what kind of options, what kind of strategies you have, what kind of options you have to register these kinds of projects? And I think Sutharee has given us already a 10-minute overview of accountability management. So I would like to touch on both aspects.
Yeah, thank you very much, Accountability Council. So again, I'm from the International Accountability Project, working as Southeast Asia Community Organizer. So just a brief background of IIT. IIT is an international organization, human rights and environmental rights organization, supporting community, social movement, and the wider civil society groups in the issues around access to information, as well as directly supporting communities in their community-led responses against projects funded by international financial institutions. So, okay, so for years, communities and the civil society groups have been pushing for a community-based approach in development practice. We at IIT, we believe that if human rights principles are integrated in the development process, vulnerable groups, marginalized sectors, such as indigenous people, peasants, women and children, and future folks are able to participate in the development process, and making sure that development is uh, fits their context and the actual needs of the communities before the project are being funded or implemented. So, it, I told you about the work of IAT in relation to access to information, and that is a big part of our work at the International Accountability Project. Recognizing the lack of transparency, we try to bridge this gap in terms of transparency and accountability. Having said that, IIT, the Center for International Environmental Law, and other civil society groups have created the Early Warning System, or what we call the EWS. This is a tool for global outreach and collaborations. So, the EWS, or the Early Warning System, aims to shift who has the access to information. So this is the sample of what we call the project snapshots, because how the early warning system, how it works is that it is a database that automatically scrapes all information, all project documents available publicly through the websites of these banks. So what we try to do is to summarize and standardize this information, because normally we receive an overwhelming volume of information and project documents from these banks. And if we are going to share this to our partners, they will also be overwhelmed. So what we try to do is to summarize or standardize the information that we receive through a project snapshot. So this is an example of the project snapshot. What you can see here is the project name, the description of the project, the amount they receive from the international financial institutions, what country, where is it, and sometimes we are able to get documents, or what we call project documents, if our partners would want to read more about this project. So this is what we share to our partners. And this is the sample of our early warning system. So we can share, maybe like after this session, we can share the link of this information. So this is the public tableau of the International Accountability Project, the data that we generate here comes from the early warning system. So we try to visualize the information, all the information from the early warning system, so that partners or communities and civil society groups are able to see the data that you want to see. So for example, you can filter, like in this section, you can filter what country do you want. So for example, you're interested only in Cambodia, you'll be able to see the projects, the banks active in the country, the amount, and we call it bank category or the risk category, because projects are categorized into high risk, medium risk, or low risk in terms of its environmental impact. So yeah, this data is, so basically IAP generate a 5-year trend. So we have from 2018 to 2022. So these are the data that we have. From that period, we were able to monitor 16,000 projects. But taking the data from 2022 until 2024, we have actually almost 30,000 projects monitored through the EWS. So yeah, these are some of the examples of the data visualization from the data that we have in the EWS database. So you can also see the investment amount from 2018 to 2022. And again, you can click, like, if you want to see only Thailand data, you can filter it in Thailand. If you want to see Thailand and ADB, if you want to see the funds coming from ADB, you can do so. So this is the our work in relation to providing information to our communities. And this is very critical because we don't know what kind of accountability we're pushing for. We don't know any information about who's funding what project. So that's crucial, just like what Toshi and Sutharee mentioned. This is very important. This is like the first step in demanding for accountability. You know, getting the information, access to information. Yeah. So through the years, we are able to produce different tableaus. We encourage our partners to collaborate with us to see, different types of information that they are interested in. Currently, we're working with the Energy Finance Tracker, and this is in relation to just energy transition. So we're tracking energy projects funded by development banks and taking into account the just energy transition work. You know, so yeah, I think I'll stop here. Then more information.
Thank you so much, Carlo. This is really important work that IAP is doing, tracking basic access to information, especially since Toshi mentioned that we have all of these financial middle banks where we don't know where the information is. We don't know who is funding the project. So I'm sure it's very important work that you do with the community. I just wanted to clarify, so this is a question to both you and Sutharee. Is it the case that the early warning system is more preemptive and the accountability mechanism some net? Or how does it work? So
I think okay. I think so. Basically, I forgot to mention that this is just a tip of the iceberg, because IAP is able, or the early warning system is able to only scrape information publicly available, and some banks do not disclose information right on time. So for us, we call it early warning system because we want it to be early stage of the project. Because if it is under proposed, there are more leverage for communities to engage. Because the funds are not yet, or the project is not yet approved by the bank. So there are more ways for communities to influence the decision of the bank to withdraw or not fund the project. So that's one. So that's gonna be like a preemptive, I think. So if the project is under proposed and we're able to monitor that and share it with our partners, they'll be able to have an informed action whether or not they will engage directly to the bank, governments, or the private companies. But yeah, so that's the preemptive measure, I guess, and we've seen that in our case in Africa, wherein we're able to share the information to our partner communities, and after that, it has been a long dialogue with the bank. And then, because of the pressure from the communities, saying that um, they're very strong about their opposition of the project, the bank pulled out of that project. So right now, the project still not get any points from any institution. So it's still part. So this is also the limitation of this mechanism. I mean, the engagement with the bank. It, when the bank pulls out, it doesn't necessarily mean that the project is cancelled. It's still there. So there is more like there is also the threat that this project will happen still there. So it is, like of course it is always the burden of the community to oppose that, even if there are clear violations, especially on disclosure and stakeholder consultation. So yeah.
So, Sutharee, I would like to ask you more about IAM. Like, what kind of strategies are you using when it comes to IAM? How do you use these IAMs? What are the benefits, pros and cons?
Okay, yeah, thank you for the questions. And I think I have also touched upon that in terms of the limitation, and also Toshi has mentioned there are limitations to using this type of mechanism. So one key thing that you have to remember when you are looking at it is like this is a complementary strategy. It's meaning that you have to apply several other strategy and approach at the same time. As Toshi mentioned, media advocacy, like political advocacy, or even the NHRI, National Human Rights Commission, or legal strategy all together and including direct action. And that could actually result in some of the very concrete and tangible, like the Kongdan one that you mentioned. And then I think one thing that I like to highlight is that many of these investments are taking place in conflict area. Like one of the projects that we have been assisting the community was in Myanmar, and it's a conservation project. It's in the southern regions of Myanmar, and the agency that's investing in this project is UNDP, United Nations Development Program. So UN, it's supposed to be also one of the good actors that's contributing. But unfortunately, because now the project is being designed and the context in Myanmar themselves, that many groups of civil society and community are being repressed and are not able to fully express their concern. So that's why this project has also caused environmental concern and also human rights concern for the community. Luckily, maybe in this case, the project, even though it has been approved by the UNDP, but it was not able to be fully implemented. Actually, it was just at the starting where the complaint intervened. And when there's a complaint, the project has been put on hold by the UNDP. And now it's even getting worse in the sense that because there was a military coup in Myanmar, so all of the activity on the ground has been suspended. So these show that when the development agency or this public bank going to invest in the country that have a volatile political situation or that is likely to have an ongoing conflict, it really have to make sure that the voice of the community that they would like to support, at the very beginning, are being heard and incorporated into the process. So maybe I stop here first.
Thank you so much, Sutharee. So Toshi and Carlo, I know Toshi has mentioned about the Lower Sutharee project in Cambodia, and this is an IFC-funded project. So could you tell us also a bit more? Sutharee has already given the example of Myanmar and in terms of a conflict region investment. Could you also tell us about your state in the sense what did communities want in this project? What is happening right now? How is the bank responding? What actions have you taken?
Can you share? So we have some that an article that we published related to the case in Cambodia or the situation right now in Cambodia. So yeah, just like what Toshi said, it's still in the process of demanding some of the like calling some of the demands of the communities impacted by the IFC funded project in Cambodia. Um, Communities are currently basically they're displaced and they're living just within their ancestral unsubmerged part of their territory. But there are still some challenges in relation to, recognition of these communities as the owner of the land. Um, yeah. So yeah, this is the recent article that we pulled out. So um, yeah, so communities are still facing like lack of support from the government. Um, their communal forests are still submerged, and it really affected the sources of their livelihood. So currently, before the communities are able to get their food, the daily food, medicine, and wood from the forest, but now they need to buy those materials in order to survive, in order to keep up with their everyday life. So, um,
So the question was more about like what are the communities expecting out of the project, and you mentioned alternative models of development. What do the communities want? Do they want the project in the first place, or do they want the project to be
yeah, of
scrapped?
course, yeah, of course, the communities do not want this project. At the beginning, they're very much vocal about their opposition in this project because especially it's hard for indigenous communities because their land is tied to their survival. If their land is destroyed, they'll be destroyed. Their survival and identity as indigenous people will be destroyed as well. So at the onset of the project, still, they raise their concerns and oppositions. One, they're very much concerned about the conduct of the free prior informed consent as a right of indigenous people. It is actually a preventive measure if the free prior informed consent is being done appropriately and appropriately. Also, um, they since they are now living um, just adjacent to the submerged village. They want the government, companies, and the financiers to support them in their land title, communal land title. Because right now, still hard and it remains to be a challenge for the Bunong community in Cambodia to access this to, for their communal land to be uh, legally like legally under their name as as a collective, no, as a indigenous Bunong. So still the demand still the same. Land titling and then support services for community.
Yeah. I think Carlo has already answered your question, so I may not be directly answering your question, but I just wanted to bring up something. When you hear about IFI's policies and grievance mechanisms, you might feel like, oh, there's a mechanism and affected communities can file a grievance and, then the mechanism may bring about some solution. It's as simple as that. You might think that way. And when I speak with, let's say, ADB officials, I get the impression that that's exactly what they're thinking, right? But when you actually look at a project, particularly like Lower Susan 2, which is taking place in a very remote area, and there are lots of dynamics, different groups, indigenous communities, ethnic minorities, dispersed geographically. Very complex. And on top of that, just imagine these people, local communities, have been living fine. They might be poor economically, but they have been, conducting their life more or less okay. Then all of a sudden, this huge project came, and NGOs like ourselves went in, and we told them, of course, well intended, give them a lot of information, ADB, World Bank policies, whatnot. Then all of a sudden, they have to cope with this very complex situation, filing a complaint while they are trying to survive. It's very difficult, and we really have to understand it. I just want to think. Thank you.
And also, I'd like to add to what Toshi said. The mechanism is actually not accessible, especially for communities. Without the support of NGOs, this mechanism will be nothing. Because, like what Toshi said, these communities are living remotely, no access to internet, no whatsoever. And also, they are not informed about different mechanisms that they can access whenever there are harms. No information. So, that's one of the challenges that we face in this situation.
Thank you so much, Carlo and Toshi. I think you really tell us about what kind of development are we really looking for. Does development could come at the cost of life and livelihood of people? So I have quite a number of questions, but I will open it up to the floor first to ask their questions. So please listen.
Hey. My name is Claire. I'm with the Counsel Environment Institute. My background is really more on migration and displacement. And I feel I really, really enjoyed the presentation first. And I really also appreciate the way that you made it appear like more simplistic and easier to understand these different flows that I think are quite complex. My question is, I feel often also in the migration and displacement space, we talk a lot about the need to increase awareness and increase accessibility of such grievance mechanisms, right, amongst the affected communities. But also, I think, as you said earlier, if you look within the last 20 years, since the first project that you mentioned, not much has changed necessarily maybe about the way that the development financing is working and the way that they're considering potential impact. So I'm wondering if there's a need to rethink also the strategy rather than just increasing the information and accessibility of what exists, moving towards something that's a bit more transformational.
You can collect more questions so in case anybody else has.
Dạ, នេះខ្ញុំមកពីប្រទេសកម្ពុជានេះខ្ញុំស្មងណែនកម្មថានេះខ្ញុំចង់សួរពាក់ព័ន្ធទៅនឹងរឿងទំនុកច្រៀងទស្សនីយ៍តាមក្រោម2ទៅលោកពូតូទីចាដោយសារយើងដឹងថានៅតំបន់ទំនុកច្រៀងតាមក្រោម2ឥឡូវគឺកំពុងតែមានផលប៉ះពាល់ជាច្រើនទៅដល់សហគមន៍អញ្ចឹងចង់សួរថាតើធនាគារ IFC ហ្នឹងគាត់មានគោលការណ៍បែបណាចំពោះធនាគារដែលទទួលលុយពីគាត់ហ្នឹងយកទៅអភិវឌ្ឍនៅតំបន់ហ្នឹងព្រោះឥឡូវគឺតំបន់ហ្នឹងកំពុងតែមានផលប៉ះពាល់ហើយមួយទៀតតើគាត់ហ្នឹងមានអំណាចប៉ុណ្ណាក្នុងការដោះស្រាយសំណងជូនប្រជាពលរដ្ឋនេះហើយ
I'm Wanta from Cambodia. I would like to ask a question related to the lower Sutharee issue. As you know, now the people in the area still suffering. And one thing I want to know, how much power that the IFI can put pressure on the bank that they release the money to implement the project, related to the compensations to the people, and the other related issues with the people in the community. Another question.
មួយទៀតដោយសារតែយើងមើលឃើញថាលុយរបស់ IFC ផ្ដល់ទៅឲ្យធនាគាររបស់គេហ្នឹងតែ 10% ទេហើយចំណែកឯធនាគាររបស់ចិនផ្ដល់ឲ្យរហូតដល់ 51%អញ្ចឹងថាចង់សួរថាតើ IFC ហ្នឹងមានឥទ្ធិពលទៅដល់ធនាគារចិនហ្នឹងដែរទេសម្រាប់ធ្វើការដោះស្រាយហ្នឹង
And IFC have the share in providing like in 10%. But China Bank has 50%. So whether the IFC or the IFI has the power on the China Bank or not, because in terms of the amount that giving is different.
មួយទៀតចង់សួរតកតងទៅនឹងបណ្ដឹងដែលសហគមន៍គាត់បានដាក់ទៅហ្នឹងចង់សួរថាតើបណ្ដឹងហ្នឹងខាងក្រុមCSO ហ្នឹងគាត់ធ្វើការចា CSO គាត់ធ្វើការជាមួយត IFC ទេឬក៏ធ្វើទាំងធនាគារចិនផងទាំងពីរនេះ
Also, another last question is related to the complaint of the impact and control in the community that they file a complaint. Whether this complaint and then when the CAO receives the complaint, whether they work only with the IFC or they work with both with China Bank and Mekong. This is my question.
So there's two questions. First of all is on the different strategies that we will be using now, concerning that a lot of these policies which are existing currently haven't really worked. And the second question is specific to the Lower Sutharee project. It's about how can we apply, I think it's about how can we apply pressures also on Chinese banks which hold equity of up to 50%. So is it the case that IFC now can only influence IFC itself, or can it also influence Chinese banks?
Maybe I can start. Is it audible? Okay. Maybe I can start with the other available strategy that you mentioned. One of my background that I work is also mostly on labor rights and migrant workers, and we have found that another quite powerful and influential kind of actor that we could also engage is the consumer. Like, especially if you are able to identify the supply chain and also the market, if there are for example, if there is an investment in certain project or certain factory that produce, like in some case like garment worker, in some case it's it could be like logging, it could be like different like products. And if you are able to trace and identify what are the downstream of that supply chain, what are the upstream of that supply chain, so then like that could also help kind of identify more stakeholder that you can also decide like what are the message that you can address. One of the this is not the IFI investment, but one of the campaign that took place, the garment worker and the NGO, they advocate with the brand, like the brand, and also they initiate a consumer campaign in order to put pressure to the brand and also to the factory to pay for the workers. So maybe the rest I can also like share like for Carlo and Toshi.
Yeah. So another, I think, strategy is like, for example, for IIT, we always emphasize the strategy and power of community organizing as a main strategy that we employ in our work, because actually re-echoing what I've heard from the business and human rights discussion last time, one indigenous people said that community strength and power will make or break project. So that is something that we really emphasize, like putting more work on community organizing, because if the communities are weak, most likely they'll not put enough and strong pressure on stakeholders, especially business, corporations, and banks to act on their demands. Also, like what Toshi has emphasized, um, we have a lot of like avenues and strategies outside of this mechanism that we that are complementary to the engagement that we're doing with the bank. So we can also do media campaign, social media organizing in in communities or schools, um, engaging other CSOs in solidarity networks to make more pressure and these issues are amplified in different levels, like country, regional, and global. Toshi?
Yeah. Let me try to give you a conceptual response, because our strategies are guided by our concept, particularly a concept of development. And whenever I think about a big question like this, I go back to this very short article written by one of our Mekong friends. His name is Larry Roman. I don't know whether he's attending Mail this year or not, but anyway. And the title of this article is quite interesting. It's called An Alternative for Alternative. And because as NGO activists, especially when we speak with IFI officials, we always get this question, what is your alternative? What are your alternatives, right? And in this article, Larry says, well, we really have to think about an alternative for who? Whose alternative are we talking about? Then he draws upon a very interesting episode when he visited another IFI project called Pakmon Dam in Southeast Isan of Thailand. Okay. Then one journalist from Europe, okay, again, well-meaning, very well-intended, asked the villagers, the village leader, this question. Okay, we understand that you don't like the Pakmon Dam and you like to oppose this dam, but what is your alternative? And the village leader very patiently responds, well, look around. We have fish, we have schools, we have temples, we have everything here. This is our alternative. We already have alternative development. However, this Pakmon Dam is actually destroying our development. On top of that, the village leader admits, sure, we still have lots of problems, whether it's alcoholism or drug or whatever. However, we have to solve these problems in our own way. But this huge dam is actually damaging our ability to develop ourselves. And we really have to do something about it. Okay. So I think what Larry is trying to say there is, if we think about or conceptualize developmental alternative as something like a fixed enterprise, I think we are making a mistake. We are missing particularly development that the communities are already creating. And oftentimes, unfortunately, IFIs are interfering existing development, and we really have to be careful about this and start thinking from there. Then I think our strategies might be better guided. That's my response. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So yeah, I have yeah, I will respond to the question, but she asked about the power of the IFC to influence the compensation to the people impacted by the lower society. This is the challenge in relation to this particular project in Lower Sesame, because this is financial intermediary, just like what Toshi said. It's hard to push for better remedies for communities, because IFC, like the IFI involved in this case, was just saying that, the companies or the banks involved in this case, they will just say that they have small share investment in this project. What is also a challenge in this case is that it involves Chinese banks, which are very hard to engage. They don't respond. Basically, they don't respond to any communications that we send to them asking for dialogues. So yeah, that is one of the reality that we face in this space. Right now, we are trying our best, like the impacted communities, together with the support groups, to influence the action plan that that is coming up soon. So we're trying to still assert the demands of the communities for communal land title, compensation, and other support that they should be receiving after being displaced from their ancestral land. So I don't know if I answered the question, but
Maybe I can add more information in terms of the Chinese investor. So you really point out a very interesting gap here, that there is no formal complaint mechanism with any of the Chinese banks. So basically, as Carlo mentioned, whatever letter you send to them, it's silent. It's like hitting the brick wall. Although there are development in terms of trying to create what it's called have responsible guideline of investment for the Chinese bank, but the effort to really set up or to establish a complaint mechanism among the Chinese bank has not been materialized. Although I can still see that in many situations, the Chinese investor or the Chinese government themselves, they are also they will respond to, for example, media. If there's media coverage that can create negative image of the project or of the investment, in some case, you can see that there will be a reaction, directly or indirectly, to that project or to that particular investment that took place. So I feel the door is not completely closed, and you can still try to use the media strategy in order to try to force some response or some reply, when there's involved Chinese bank. You have any follow-up questions? Anybody in the room? Uh, มาจากเชียงรายนะคะจะขอโฟกัสในเรื่องของฝากแบงก์กับโฟกัสเรื่องฝากแบงก์ตอนนี้ในโครงการฝากแบงก์มันจะถึงขั้นตอนการพิจารณาของ กฟผ.ของไทยซึ่งถ้าเกิดการศึกษาผลกระทบข้ามแดนที่เขาให้บริษัทที่ปรึกษาบริษัทหนึ่งทำแล้วมันผ่านมันจะไปนำไปสู่ขั้นตอนการระดมทุนจากสถาบันการเงินซึ่งตอนนี้สถาบันการเงินเขาค่อนข้างจะระวังไม่เปิดตัวไม่ประกาศเหมือนสมัยก่อนตอนนี้ก็คือทราบว่าจะมีทั้งแบงก์ของสัญชาติไทยแล้วก็แบงก์ของจีนด้วยค่ะการร่วมทุนเนี้ยค่ะตอนนี้เรายังไม่อยากก้าวไปถึงการเยียวยาแต่เราอยากหยุดโครงการจากที่ท่านคงทราบว่าตอนนี้เชียงรายมีปัญหาเรื่องอุทกภัยรุนแรงมากแล้วมันชัดเจนว่าแม่น้ำโขงหนุนทำให้เกิดน้ำไหลบ่าท่วมอย่างน้อยลุ่มน้ำอิงเฉพาะลุ่มน้ำอิงนะคะน่าจะ200,000 กว่าไร่ซึ่งมันเป็นสภาพน้ำขังด้วยแล้วก็ตอนนี้หน่วยงานในพื้นที่เริ่มเข้าใจแล้วว่าน้ำแม่โขงหนุนเนี่ยมันจะเกิดผลเสียซึ่งตรงนี้มันเป็นข้อมูลใหม่มันสามารถที่จะทำให้แบงค์ที่กำลังจะปล่อยกู้เขาสนใจในเรื่องนี้ได้หรือไม่นะคะหรือเรามีวิธีหรือไม่เพราะว่ากฟผ.เป็นคนซื้อบริษัทไทย 49% บริษัทจีน 51%จากก่อนหน้านี้บริษัทจีนสนใจคนในชุมชนโดยส่งคนมาเจรจาในตัวของโครงการพัฒนาซึ่งเราก็ใช้ก็คือมีพันธมิตรNGO แล้วก็สื่อที่คอยช่วยกระตุ้นเราสถานที่ก็พยายามที่จะตอบคำถามเราแต่ว่าเราจะให้โครงการนี้ทบทวนอย่างน้อยทบทวนคือเราเคยขอให้เขาทบทวนจริงๆนะตอนนี้เขาน่าจะเสร็จแล้วถ้าเกิดเป็นไปตามขั้นตอนของเขาแต่มันก็ช้ามาประมาณ 7-8 ปีแต่ตอนนี้เขาตัดสินใจที่หมายถึงว่ามันผ่านการรับซื้อของกฟผ.แล้วแต่มันยังขาดขั้นตอนสุดท้ายก็คือการระดมทุนตรงนี้ค่ะกับสภาพภัยที่เกิดขึ้นกับความจริงที่เกิดขึ้นเนี่ยมันจะทำให้แบงค์ที่กำลังจะปล่อยกู้เนี่ยให้เขาฟังได้ยังไงบ้างคะ
I think I will just translate and try to summarize the point because this is about the hydropower dam on the Mekong Main Street or Back Dam, which is the northern part of Thailand. So what she is wondering is that, for this dam, it's going to be blocking the Mekong Main Street. I mean, all of the electricity will be sold to Thailand, right? Even though this dam is going to allocate in Lao territory. So now the Thai EGAT, the Electricity Authority of Thailand, already accepted. They already passed the agreement between EGAT Thailand and the dam builder that the project can start. So her question is that right now the only process that is going to be the company, the dam builder, going to raise funds right from the private bank, and I'm not sure, and this is for the Thai and the Chinese bank. So her question is that, and then she explained the related issue that right now in the northern Thailand, right, like Chiang Rai province and the area that close to this Pak Bang area is, as you may know, is facing a very heavy flood. Right, and she just wondered that this kind of natural disaster, the thing that's happening now, and which is going to have the Pak Bang impact even worse, can be the reason for us, the people, to explain to the bank, to kind of pull out or pay less attention because for them they don't want to talk about the compensation, right? Remedy or something. No, they want to stop the project. But of course, everyone knows Pak Bang has gone pretty far because the agreement was there, and it's also most of the share is the Chinese. It's the Chinese company and the Thai company together. Yeah, that's it. So maybe I can start, and then if the other panelists has a thing to add.
You mentioned that the potential investor would also be a Chinese company. or like it could also involve actually some state like a sponsor like and finance as well. Actually like amongst the Chinese like public office themselves, increasingly in the past few years, they are more concerned about environmental and biodiversity issue. And I think this could be one of the arguments that you could use in order to persuade and convince like the investor that this area, for example, have significant factor or support to the biodiversity network in the region or like in your locality, and like how this hydropower is going to destroy or damage that. I think this would be how to say like one of the entry points that you can use when you engage with the Chinese actor. I'll stop here, and maybe if other people have asked.
Hello. Okay. Allow me the liberty to reform that question a little bit because I cannot answer, specifics about what she brought up. I think we are here talking about how to deal with Chinese actors, and that's related to a question too. Okay, based on my experiences of working with Japanese bureaucrats and government officials, because China and Japan share some similar culture, right? I think to Chinese, sometimes it's more important who is talking about, let's say, impact or, giving information rather than what is actually being said. I think Chinese people in general, particularly bureaucrats, tend to hear more willingly if Chinese people with senior position telling them or sharing the information. So I think we definitely need to get hold of our Chinese friends who can access senior Chinese officials. And if these Chinese officials, senior officials, particularly beyond certain ages, tell Chinese banks or Chinese companies or whatever, then they may listen to us more seriously.
So I'll have to thank you so much, Toshi and Sutharee, for responding to this question. I'll have to make a hard stop here because it's already 10 minutes past. But if there is something that we are carrying away from this session, it is the power of narrative, the power of community organizing, and of using different strategies together. With that, I will end the session. Thank you so much, panelists.